Hello everyone, welcome to CME Deployment from Scratch video. I'm Amir and I'm very excited to be demonstrating to you how to make phone calls within your network. I would like to give a big shout out to Mr. Arif for teaching us VoIP course. We really enjoyed learning from him. Now before we get started, there's one step that we have to take, and that is getting 2 Windows VMs and 1 Linux VM installed. We are going to make calls to and from Windows machines, and Linux is our Cisco Call Manager Express, aka CME. Let's start off by installing bridge utils and UML utils. We're going to make an interface act as a bridge and connect a tap device to that interface so that we have connectivity between our VMs and the host machine. We are going to say yes, and we're going to edit the interface file to actually make that interface that we're going to connect the tap device to it. Now you can basically copy and paste what I've put in this file, except put your IP scheme that you're considering and the ENP0S3 and BR0. Now the ENP0S3 is your interface, and you're going to make sure that it matches your interface by just typing ifconfig to double check that. Now let's restart the networking service to take effect. Now if you take a look into the log file, you might see that it fails, but it actually didn't. Sometimes it works. By just pinging the interface, you can tell whether the interface is up or not. If it wasn't, you can simply do it manually. Now let's install Dynagen and Dynamips, which are basically going to act as router virtualization in Linux. Make a router directory that we're going to put all of our files there. Now let's make a Dynagen file. I'm calling it amirdynagen.conf. Now this 2000 is the port number that we specified to connect. Networking directory is important, and the image, you have to put the exact file, and that R1 is your router's name. Now in my case I call it R1. The F00 is the router's interface that we're going to connect to Linux as the tap1 device. So now that I've created that file, let's start Dynamips with the port 2000 that we specified earlier. Now that we've started our Dynamips, if the Dynagen works fine, that means Dynamips is also working fine. Let's start our router. Now let's open a new tab and telnet to localhost port 2521. Okay, the router is being started. We'll wait for just a little bit to load, and then we'll start the configuration. Okay, so I'll do a show IP interface, and you have to specify an IP address, and make sure you enter the no shit command for the interface to be up. Now let's try to ping that interface from our Linux. Perfect, so they can see each other. Now I'll enter some troubleshooting commands just in case yours doesn't work, so follow along with me. Let's double check what is under our bridge interface. No wonder I can ping that interface because it's up, but I want to put tap device under bridge interface. Great. Always double check your configurations immediately to see if they have taken effect. Now let's restart our networking service. Also double check your tap device to see if it is up by typing if config tap 1 up. Now mine isn't. Now to set up our TFTP server, let's start by installing TFTPD and TFTP client, which will come in handy later for testing purposes. Now XINET-D, I believe it's the daemon or service that runs TFTP. We need to edit the TFTP file under that directory and just copy and paste what I've typed. Now just create TFTP boot under the root directory and just copy some file into that. Now let's TFTP into our own machine, which is .2 in my case, and test if it can bring your file. And here I'm entering some troubleshooting commands in case you ran into a problem with permissions or the service didn't start properly. Also don't forget to put cme.tar file under this directory Now as you can see, I've created two interfaces. The first one is NAT network, which VMs can communicate with each other within the VirtualBox, and the second one is bridge adapter, which is meant to be a connection between host and the VMs. And don't forget to allow all in promiscuous mode so that you won't be restricted by anything. It's always nice to have a kind of GUI management, so let's set that up. Set the router as an HTTP server, specify the GUI files in the disk 0, and let's go to telephony service mode, and let's create the admin user and with admin password for web access. Enable DN edit and time edit. Also specify a maximum for ePhones. I think 20 is fine. And also don't forget to put your source address, port 2000 of the router. Specify a maximum DN. Set the system message to be something distinguishable. This is very important. Don't forget to save your configurations by creating that CNF file. Okay, now that we've set that up, let's log into GUI. Not to mention, you need to install CIPC phone soft phone into your Windows machines in order to have those soft phones. By going to Preferences and Network tab, you can also double check the MAC address that is bind to your soft phone, because that is going to determine which phone are you working with. Okay, now I'm basically adding phones based on their MAC addresses through GUI, and just pay attention to the sequence number. And also don't forget to specify a TFTP server with the address of our router for soft phones in order to get the configurations file through TFTP. Now that we've added the phones, let's create a DN for each of them so that they have a dial pair which they can call each other with. Because CME doesn't going to associate any number with the soft phones that it already has. So we have to specify for it. So guys, pay attention here. When we want to enter the ePhone in the CLI, we have to double check that to match the number in the GUI. So now I'm entering ePhone 2 because it gave me the sequence number 2 for that specific MAC address. And for specifying the button, this is very, very important. The first number is the button number on your phone. It's literally the first button or second button or third button. So that is the number of physical button located on your soft phone. And the second number in the button command is going to be the sequence number of your dial period. I know that it might sound a bit confusing, but if you pay attention to sequence numbers and know that the phone sequence number is different from dial period sequence number, then you should be good to go. And I'm going to do the same for our second ePhone. First, I'm going to add that ePhone and a dial pair associating with it, and then adding the button in the router's CLI configuration. And after that, I'm going to make a phone call between my CIPC soft phones. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully that will help some folks out there that are going to deploy CME.